friends. Hello, hi, how are you? I hope you guys are having an amazing day today. Hello. So today's video, first of all, there's some housekeeping. I'm just gonna do a quick couple of things. First of all, I so apologize for my lack of posting lately. If you've been following for a while, you know that I don't normally go super long amounts of time in between posting. It's normally like a day or two, and the past 2 weeks I've been lacking. I had a lot of personal stuff one week, and then the second week I was sick, so it's just a bad combination, bad week. But now that we're in October, we're in spooky season, we're back in full force. Things will be coming back next week, normal, like 3 to 4 uploads a week. Second of all, speaking of October and spooky, I have new merch. I'm actually so proud of this merch. Not that I'm not normally proud of my merch, but this October merch, I just think my designer Madeline absolutely crushed it and like really hit it out of the park with this stuff. It was so much fun collaborating with her on this idea and coming up with this sort of tarot card inspired merch. I personally really love it and think it's so cool. I already ordered mine and cannot wait to get it. My new merch will be all linked down below. We have hoodies, t-shirts, mugs, pillows. There's a dog hoodie, which I did order for my dog, and we have tons of stuff down there. So if you want to go check that out, please do. It supports the channel, it supports me, and yeah, I'm really excited about it. Finally, the last little tidbit is the candle of the day. Today's candle of the day is what I actually wanted to talk about. It's Banana Walnut Muffin from Bath & Body Works, which I have kind of been trying to steer away from them. I've been trying to go more indie candles, but this one in particular, this scent is so good. I've been loving this candle. It's been my Zoom burning candle, so I burn it during my classes. Really love this scent. It's so nice and just pleasant, and I wanted to give it a little bit of a shout out because last year I fell in love with Champagne Toast, and while that is still absolutely my #1, this one is coming in hot for like a close second of Bath & Body Works scents because it smells so good. Anyway, today's video will be the evolution of Emma Chamberlain. Woo! Let's do some like Emma editing styles really quick just so we can get in the vibe of Emma. This video was really fun to make and I had a lot of fun with it, but I do want to do a little bit of a disclaimer. It's definitely a little bit different from my normal evolution of videos, just in the sense that I did have kind of a broader reason for wanting to talk about Emma, not necessarily like her specifically, but I think more what she represents, which we're gonna get into. But I don't want anybody to like click on this video thinking it's like a hate video or something like that towards her, because that's absolutely not what this is. However, I do think her career and rise on YouTube is super interesting. So if you're interested in that, let's get into it. So Emma Chamberlain is a 19-year-old YouTuber here on the tubes. She currently lives in Los Angeles, California, but when she first started her channel, she lived in the Bay Area, which is near San Francisco. So still in California, but about like a 5-hour drive, like different kind of ends of California. She uploaded her very first YouTube video in June of 2017 titled City Inspired Lookbook. And I think right off the bat, what's really interesting about Emma, just to clarify, as social media is progressing, we're seeing a lot of people get their start in a lot of different ways. Emma is absolutely one of those creators that started at zero. She didn't have any sort of built-in platform from any other social medias like Vine or TikTok. She really was just a YouTuber through and through. She started on YouTube and that is where she gained all of her success. Now, this initial video was basically just Emma wearing a bunch of different clothes, walking around San Francisco, and it was later she talked about this video kind of in detail. Her and her dad shot this video after she failed her driver's license test when she was like 16, and it was a way for her to feel better and to cope, and she loved it so much that when she uploaded it, she just wanted to keep uploading. And in a way, this first video was very representative of not only her starting her YouTube career, but also her using YouTube as a way to cope with a lot of the depression and anxiety that she dealt with as a teenager. The video is actually super interesting because it's actually very well shot and well made and well edited. And even though Emma is obviously just kind of like doing what she thought other more, you know, lifestyle lookbook YouTubers were doing at the time, which again is what everybody does. I feel like that's a reoccurring theme, is like everybody copies everybody when you first start. But even though that is the case, it's still shot very well. She's doing fun, different types of editing styles that weren't particularly popular during that time, especially for that genre of YouTube. While a lot of the editing styles that she chose were not necessarily the most trendy for, you know, lookbook style videos, and they weren't the most high quality or professional style editing, I think it's really important to note that even in this first video, Emma has a very clear desire to experiment with editing styles. You can see she found one specific edit that like made it look like you were glitching, like walking back and forth, and she sprinkled it in multiple times to make the video just a little bit more interesting and add a little bit more of that depth to it. And while I don't want to harp too much on her very first video, I think knowing what we know about Emma now, being that she kind of popularized an entire genre of editing on YouTube, you can see her need and her want to experiment with this type of content and with this type of editing. And I think that's really, really cool and something you don't see in a lot of YouTubers' first videos. Usually first videos are like one-offs, or they're not very good, or people are kind of awkward, and hers is very reminiscent of what the rest of her content would be in terms of experimenting with different things. She definitely started out as somewhat of a fashion and beauty blogger. Her first couple of videos are like a DIY video of how to put like a rose patch on your Vans, or like a Zaful haul. When she first started, had this sort of idea about herself that she was going to be somewhat of a fashion channel, but that quickly evolved. Throughout the progression of her career, she really did become known as sort of the anti-vlogger, but it's kind of funny because her initial content is anything but that. And if you look at Emma's Social Blade, you can see that her growth when she started out was not at all bad. Like, she did pretty well. Even her first video, I believe at the time, got like 100,000 views, which is pretty impressive for a channel starting at 0. And as she posted more, which honestly at this beginning stage, she posted so much content. Like, I have no idea how she was consistently putting out content that was this, not even well edited, just interestingly edited. I don't know how she was doing it so much, but she was putting out content like every single day. And I think kind of a definitive shift in her beginning content was a vlog trip that she took to the Dominican Republic. She vlogged every single day that she was there. And by the end, you could see the shift from doing the more, you know, influencer, like vacation style shots where it's like very scenic and very, everything's beautiful, and you wake up and you drink your coffee and you're vlogging that. You could see that she had taken those things, but she was like mocking them. Like when she showed her coffee, instead of like little happy music playing, it was like bow, bow, bow. You know how influencers like do that shot where they open the windows and like their terrace? She opened the windows and it was just like a sidewalk. Like, she was doing things that were what influencers did, but she was having a comedic take on them and in a way almost mocking them, which I think was super hyper unique at the time, because at this time in 2017, it was still very popular to be more of a influencer as we knew them in 2017. She represented what a lot of 16-year-olds could relate to, and she dressed in a way that would later be coined kind of the Visco girl aesthetic. She would curse, she would say things that were super relatable.
Hi, editing me here. Do not take a shot every time I say the word relatable. Don't play that drinking game at home. Don't do it. I say the word relatable probably 75,000 times in this video. I understand, but it's like the only word to describe this phenomenon. So I apologize, but please don't play the drinking game with this video. Don't do it. Just don't, please. I don't want to be held responsible for anything. Okay, back to the video.
Where when she started showing more of her personality, it was much more broken down and relatable than what other YouTubers were putting out. She also, during this time, during the summer of 2017, was doing these car vlogs, and watching those back, I can literally 1,000,000,000% see why teenagers liked her and identified with her, because she was just a normal teenager. She was naturally super likable. She was super honest and real, and she just sat in her car and like jammed to music, almost got in car accidents low-key. Like, it was entertaining to watch. There were definitely 2 videos super early on into her whole channel that sort of catapulted her a little bit and made her grow a lot faster. And one was titled $450 Gucci shirt, in which she kind of mocked the influencer culture of, you know, pushing expensive things onto people, basically saying she can't afford a $450 shirt, and she like paints her own Gucci t-shirt that was super popular at the time. And again, like, watching that, I can see why that's relatable, because every kid sitting at home is watching influencers who are pushing that type of lifestyle on them. And then you have Emma, who is saying, I can't afford that shit, and neither can you. Here we are, let's paint it ourselves. In a way, it's genius. I don't think any of this was particularly calculating on Emma's part. Like, I don't think she was trying to be this like anti-influencer, but purposefully, because she knew it would be so successful. I think she genuinely just, that's how she felt at that point in time. She was 16 and she didn't have $450 to spend on a shirt, so she painted her own. She was a representative of normal teenagers, normal kids from like Gen Z. And again, I think that's why people resonated so much with her. And it's the same thing with her other video that went really viral at the time, which was called "We All Owe the Dollar Store an Apology." Looking back, this video is obviously not super met for like my demographic of people or like what I'm interested in or what I think is funny. But again, like as a 16-year-old, I would have thought that was hilarious. She's like putting on wigs and like just grabbing random stuff that you find at the dollar store and doing funny stuff with it. And like, it's good. It's genuinely funny content. I think the thing about that is Emma does in this early content kind of experiment with like skits. And I have to say, I think those flopped. They flopped in views, first of all. And I think they also didn't resonate with her audience as much, probably like her really big supporters. But I don't think it resonated with her main core audience enough, because what people liked was her. They didn't really want her to be a comedian or playing a different character or playing a role. They wanted just her genuine reactions to things, because on their own it was funny enough. She didn't like need to be playing a character or doing skits. And I think she realized that. I also think in a way this dollar store video and the Gucci video, they were probably the best videos that could have hit the YouTube algorithm right. It really did show off her sort of larger than life personality. She has this likability about her, especially in these early videos, that I think people really, really connected with. And I think these videos helped solidify her again as this sort of anti-influencer. I also think it was very helpful that in 2017, this was right around the time people were starting to be over larger influencers. We were seeing people like Jake and Logan Paul, who had these kind of kid-friendly like vlogging channels that were like, everything's great. We were seeing them fall away to the people like David Dobrik, who were doing these crazy things and being a little bit more vulgar and being different. I think the tide was changing from typical, in every community, honestly, because even in the beauty community we saw this, where tides were changing from Morphe code beauty gurus who always had perfect makeup to people who were a little bit more relatable and normal people. Not only was she making good content at this time, she was making content that was on trend for what was about to happen, which in YouTube world is kind of a recipe for success, because her personality was what was trendy at that point in time. And I think that really, really helped her too. So for the rest of the summer of 2017, she kind of rode that wave of having some really popular videos. She was making funny, light-hearted content that included cook with me's, like sit-down videos, just talking, car vlogs, and fashion hauls. Her channel was really a mishmash of whatever she could come up with in her brain, and I think that actually is pretty representative of what her channel continued to be for the next 3 years. Emma has never really fit into one genre of YouTube particularly. She started her junior year in high school, and she started doing these like high school vlogs. She would go to school and vlog her day with her friends, and again, this really set her apart, because other lifestyle YouTubers at this time were like 26-year-olds doing back to school hauls and locker decorating videos. And here you had this normal, actually 16-year-old girl just showing you what it was like to actually be a junior in high school. She would like run late to school. She'd have her coffee. She'd do poorly in a math class. Like, she was honest about pulling all-nighters and the stress that high school put on her. And again, these videos did super, super well for her. People loved seeing somebody that they could identify with and relate with, and that was Emma. And honestly, at this point in time, Emma was kind of honest to a fault. I think in recent years, she's kind of closed off a lot of her personal life, which honestly makes total sense. But in these videos, she's super honest, like to a fault. She's completely transparent about what is really going on in her life, and I think people really, really loved that. I also think at this point in time, it's a good place to kind of pause and just talk about, in general, Emma's editing. Because as 2017 progressed and into 2018, it's really, really important to note that the Emma Chamberlain style of editing became something of a phenomenon on YouTube. And she really popularized that. I'm not gonna sit here and say that she like created the Ken Burns, which is like the zoom in, but she absolutely popularized that style of editing. She popularized using distortion features, changing your voice, adding in like funny effects. She absolutely popularized that style of editing, especially during this time with her vlogs. And I think not only did that help her in the sense that it set her apart from other people, but that on top of, she was making this anti-vlogger content that was super, super popular. And then on top of that, she had people starting to imitate her, and people were calling other people out for imitating her. It was just getting her name out there more and more and more and more. Now, through the rest of the fall of 2017, Emma was still putting out this really consistent content, but there was an obvious shift where she was starting to do things that like normal everyday kids couldn't do because they were in school. So she'd always be at like coffee shops or like doing all this stuff, and people were kind of like, hey, where are your school vlogs? Why aren't you, I don't know, in school? Like, what are you doing? And so she got into her first, I don't want to call this a scandal because I don't think it was a scandal. I think this was kind of her first video that got to a lot of people outside of just her audience. So in October of 2017, she made a video addressing this called Why I Left School. Basically, Emma talked, I'm going to give a brief version of this, but basically Emma discussed how high school had always made her really depressed. The end of her sophomore year, she like missed the last day of school because she was super depressed about failing her driver's test, and always struggled with this depression surrounding school. And then in the summer of 2017, when she started posting YouTube content, she felt like that kind of saved her. She felt like this was her coping skill to deal with her depression. And so she was able to post videos all the time, and she was growing on YouTube, and she loved that. And then she went back to school, you know, as a junior in high school. And the first few days were fine because she could vlog at the school, but then the school found out, and obviously they can't, especially because they were a private school, you can't really have like a 17-year-old vlogging in school. Just like, it makes sense why the school didn't want her to vlog, but the school didn't want her to vlog, and that kind of caused her to be really depressed again and really sad again. So as a result of that, Emma decided to leave high school and pursue online school. Now, if you've been subscribed to me for a while, you know that I'm a very large advocate for education, especially getting your high school diploma. And especially, I'm not a big fan of this idea that kids should be dropping out of school to be influencers. However, I do think that with Emma in particular, she did not just leave school and like abandon her diploma. She did get her degree at advanced rate online. Personally, from my perspective, and I think there's still a lot of research that needs to be done around this, but I do think that people are very quick to online schooling, and I understand the reasons, because I don't think online school is for everybody. Obviously, we're seeing that now with the pandemic and kids having to go to school online. We're seeing that it's not an effective tool for everybody. However, I think it can be an effective tool for some. I think some kids, frankly, do much better in online schooling, especially kids who are in high school and don't need as much of that social interaction because they've already had a lot of it in like middle school and beginning of high school. Now, do I think that every kid who has like 100 subscribers on YouTube should just like drop out of school and do online school? No, but I don't think necessarily that she only dropped out because of YouTube. I genuinely believe that she had a lot of anxiety and depression surrounding her school. And I know she got a lot of criticism because it seemed like she wasn't promoting education or prioritizing education to her young fan base. I actually kind of disagree. I feel like it's important that we are more open and honest as a society about the different routes that people can take to have a successful life or career. And while I believe that getting a high school diploma is absolutely something that everybody should do, I also think that there are different routes to get there that we should be considering and be more open to. And also, I have to say, I know her parents got a lot of criticism at the time of her posting this video because people felt like they were just letting her not go to school because she was like depressed. But also at the same time, if my child was very unhappy in school and it was making them really that depressed is what she was talking about, because she was talking about a lot of like serious depression. My child was also making like $50,000 a month on YouTube. I probably also would be inclined to allow them to finish out their degree online. Not gonna lie. I don't think she should have gotten the criticism that she got for this, and I actually give her a lot of credit for being so open and honest about the reasonings behind this and about her path forward, because she literally could have just not talked about it, and I almost feel like that would have been worse, but she was super, super honest about her reasoning, and I think that was, you know, great. Despite this not really having an impact on the sense that I think Emma should have been like shamed for this decision, I do think that this switch sort of started the change that we ended up seeing in her content, in the sense that she went from being this very relatable person to now she was doing still like relatable things, like she was thrifting and getting coffee and like, you know, driving around in her car listening to like the Strokes. Like she was still doing all of that, but she wasn't in school anymore. She wasn't doing the standard thing anymore that her audience was doing. She went from being strictly relatable to relatable in the sense that other girls wanted to be her. Not so much that they were her, they wanted what she had and wanted to be like her. So towards the end of 2017, after like her first 6 months on YouTube, Emma was doing super well. She had over 1 million subscribers. She met with YouTubers like Cody Ko and was like traveling and doing more standard YouTube things because she had the time and the freedom to do so because she wasn't taking traditional classes anymore. Now in 2018, especially the beginning, I think Emma's content really did stay pretty similar for the most part. She was doing the things that made her really popular in the first place. Like she was doing the car vlogs, but she was definitely going on more sort of adventurous things because she had her car all day by herself. She had the time to do things that were more adventurous. And she also gained a lot of popularity and started being invited on more like brand trips and things like that, and also started meeting other influencers. Now, what was especially interesting about 2018 was that not only was her popularity growing, but I think there was definitely starting to become the trend of what I would call the Emma Chamberlain wave of YouTube. There was other young girls who liked what they saw Emma doing and kind of started recreating what she was doing, or current vloggers who had an established audience were seeing Emma's success and they were pivoting to be more like her, to add the editing in that was more like hers, to create content that was more vulnerable and open and relatable. Like, all of those things started happening as she got more and more popular. Now, in the summer of 2018, Emma was just like blowing up. She gained over 1 million subscribers in a singular month. She like went to VidCon and was featured in a David Dobrik video. She did a video with Tana Mojo. She really had one of the fastest growing YouTube channels of 2018 because a year before that, she had just started making content. Nobody really knew who she was, and she was like a fan of these people, and now here she is being featured in their videos and hanging out with them. And I think still during this time in 2018, the conversation around Emma was still very positive. There were absolutely people that found her to be very annoying. I feel like that's probably the biggest comment I saw overarching of when criticizing Emma, was that people think she's annoying. Similarly to how Jojo Siwa makes content for like children, Emma's content was very obviously made for like teenagers. I also think that people don't really give enough credit to people who make things for a specific audience, if that makes sense. She was still doing this sort of game-changing editing style that was very fun. She was still very relatable. She even got her first brand deal, and it was like a whole video, but not in the way that you normally see influencers do it. She had like a little plaque and she wore like a tie. She made a big deal about the fact that she had an advertiser and how happy she was about it and excited. And again, it makes you want to buy things that she's selling. Like, she probably had some of the best audience participation in those advertising campaigns because you wanted to support her, because you felt like she was still like you. I think a lot of, especially young women, felt like they were just like her, even though she was living a very, very, very different life to what they were living. It was that confusion between being relatable to her and wanting to be her, because her personality was so similar to other people's personalities at that time, but her lifestyle absolutely was not. I think sort of the end of 2018, those points hit a bit of a crossroads, if you will. I hate to be the person that's like, oh, she moved to LA and then she changed. Because while I do think Los Angeles, particularly influencer culture in Los Angeles, can absolutely change people, I've seen it time and time again, as I'm sure you all have as well, I feel like that does kind of ignore a lot of other factors of Emma's life that were also changing during this time that could have contributed to how she has changed over the past 2 years. So in 2018, Emma moved to LA. She was 17 years old and she showed the entire process from like apartment hunting with her mom, moving in, to driving down, to doing all these things, and like she made the big move, right? She started collaborating with influencers like James Charles and the Dolan twins, and obviously collabing with YouTubers of that, you know, stature, like they're huge influencers, further propelled her YouTube channel and made her even bigger. Now, I will say towards the end of 2018, I think this is where the sort of like cracks, if you will, started to show. Up until this point, once Emma started really blowing up, she definitely started becoming a lot more private about her personal life a little bit. Like, she's always been an open book about things that don't necessarily matter, but I think when it comes to things that did matter, she definitely started being more reserved, which totally makes sense. But I think towards the end of 2018, you started to see the cracks a little bit. I think there is when you do popularize an entire genre on YouTube in the way that she did. I do think there is a large amount of pressure that comes with that, and I think that pressure really, really started to get to her. You can see that she felt an immense pressure to edit. She literally said at certain points she would edit videos for like 26 hours and then would just delete them because she hated them. I think she struggled because now that everybody was kind of doing the style that she had popularized, I think she probably felt this need to evolve past what she had done and start something new and always be ahead of the trends. And the problem with that is that's not always the case. You can't always be ahead of the trends. She was just doing what she knew how to do in the beginning and it blew up for her. That doesn't mean you can just like completely reinvent yourself and do it again. But I think she did feel a lot of that pressure to be very funny and put out very good content, which honestly, I don't think is that abnormal for people who blow up super fast. Like, you look at people like Elle Mills, who talked very openly openly about YouTube burnout and how she felt this need to constantly be one-upping herself and put this immense pressure on herself with her videos to be perfect. And that's not always attainable for YouTubers. And I think with someone like Emma, who has openly talked about how much she edits and how much love she puts into her editing, I think that was probably very difficult for her to try to find something new and fresh to be like the new and fresh person on top of having all of this growth and all of these people expecting things from you. And she was 17. I also think too, something that people really don't talk about when it comes to Emma is that it's pretty obvious watching her content that she has a really strong relationship with her mom and dad, which like me and my mom, I'm the same way. And I think moving 5 hours away from her family at the age of 17 was difficult. While that's something that a lot of kids go through, if you're going away for college, that's when a lot of kids move away from college. So that's not that abnormal of an experience, but I do think the active moving away and not being in a place that's kind of structured the way that college is, I could see why that would be really hard. While it was obvious that she had like friends and stuff, you could also definitely see this sort of like decline in her over 2018. Like if you look at her videos in the start of 2018 to the end of 2018, you can very clearly see that like the weight of everything is kind of getting to her, and you can also see that she's posting a lot less. She's feeling a little bit less inspired. It's honestly kind of sad to watch if you really think about it. Now, in the summer of 2018, right after she moved to LA, Emma kind of had her first scandal. She launched her first sort of attempt at merch, and it was called High Key by Emma Chamberlain, and this was pretty bad. Emma launched this with a brand that she had worked very closely with, and a brand that was taking her on a lot of brand trips called Dote. It was an online retailer, and frankly, this launch was highly criticized for the right reasons. She launched these products, and like the photos that were on the website advertising the products were all blurred out. They were all one size fits all. You could only buy them through this weird app. They were super, super overpriced given who her fan base is, and it was overall just a huge miss. Basically, it seems like Dote was kind of using her as the face of this line, and Emma didn't really have a lot of creative input in the line or any sort of, you know, say in anything, which isn't that uncommon for a YouTuber for their first kind of launch. But because it was her line and her brand, I think her fans definitely expected more from her. So in a way, looking back, I think Dote probably screwed her over more than anyone else, but she had to take the full force of that. And I don't think Emma was really prepared to go through, not like anybody is, but I don't think she was super prepared to go through, you know, the drama channels talking about her and people outside of her circle finding out about her and really criticizing her. You can see, especially during that time, that the hate was really, really, really getting to her. And I think that's something she still has struggled with since then. I think because up until this point, Emma had had such like a good reputation, when something bad happened, people were very quick to jump on it and then in turn kind of criticize other things that she had done in her career on YouTube. In the end of 2018, Emma became a part of a very defined group on YouTube called the Sister Squad. It was basically James Charles, Ethan and Grayson Dolan, and Emma. And they did a bunch of collab videos together. They were basically like besties, and they all filmed videos on each other's channel. These videos racked up millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of views. The cross promotion was like unreal because you had like the Dolan twin side of the internet, Emma's side of the internet, and the makeup side of the internet with James all come together to form this like superpower. And during this time, there was I'm not really one to speculate on teenage relationships, but I do think it's important to note that it was pretty obvious that Emma started dating Ethan Dolan, one of the Dolan twins. Emma started dating one of them, I think it was Ethan, and it was very obvious that when they broke up, that took like a toll on her because it had been kind of public. There was so much speculation. I remember there were tons of videos being made that was like proof that Ethma is real, and it was like Ethan had a speck of glitter on his lips and Emma wears glittery lip balm. Like these stans obviously went crazy over trying to figure out if they were actually dating or if they weren't. It seems like this was Emma's first real relationship, and I can imagine that it's kind of difficult to navigate that, not only being in a friend group that is business-wise mutually beneficial, but also just being is so much in the public eye. Like I can imagine that that was probably difficult. In early 2019, it was pretty obvious that Emma was struggling not only with like her mental health, but also with her content. She couldn't really decide what type of content she wanted to make. And unlike in her early days of YouTube, this experimental content felt a lot less like a young girl just like trying to play around on YouTube and like do things for fun. and more like somebody who was just posting because she felt like she had to post because she like had this audience. That kind of passion for YouTube was sort of fading in 2019. I think what really changed in 2019 for Emma was the fact that her lifestyle and her audience's lifestyle, it became glaringly obvious how different those two things were. She was like going to Paris Fashion Week as a VIP with Louis Vuitton and like being featured in Hollister stores. She moved into this like beautiful 3-story LA apartment. Like it went from she had this really relatable personality and she was living a somewhat relatable life to she is no longer relatable to me really in any sense except that we have a similar sense of humor. And I think as far as her branding goes, that kind of wasn't good for her. And in turn, you could see this sort of identity crisis happening within her. Like she would wear Louis Vuitton and people would bring up the fact that she used to make fun of people who wore Louis Vuitton. She would go to Coachella and people would point out the fact that she literally talked about how much she hated Coachella and how superficial it was and how vapid it was. She went on vacation by herself and basically just complained the entire time because she didn't want to be there. And I think people were picking up on this, and in turn, her trajectory was definitely going down. She wasn't gaining as many monthly subscribers. She wasn't like in the red, but she was going down. And also her views were going down because people who had subscribed to her for this relatable content weren't really getting that anymore. She also started uploading less frequently, and kind of similarly to what we've seen from people like David Dobrik and Liza Koshy, she started to transcend YouTube a little bit. Like she started being on the cover of magazines. She was like being in all of these videos. She was doing videos with Karlie Kloss, like mainstream celebrities. She was having massive media companies like Vanity Fair and Cosmopolitan and Complex. They wanted to do YouTube videos with her. So she was starting to transcend her YouTube channel, which is pretty much any YouTuber's real dream at this point. Also in 2019, she was kind of doing the same old type of stuff, but you could tell again, her heart wasn't super in her videos. She made videos like fashion hauls, but she just wasn't into it. Also in 2019, she started her coffee company, Chamberlain Coffee. As at this point, she only has, I think, she came out with her initial launch, which was like, they were biodegradable like tea bags, but it had coffee in them. I actually bought them. They were not bad. They were actually pretty good. It wasn't amazing, but like wasn't bad. And now recently she's come out with another launch, those 4 separate new flavors for her brand. So it seems like she's gonna focus on honing in on her love for coffee and expanding the brand. Now I will say, I think in late 2019, we saw a bit of a turnaround. Emma made a video basically titled "We Miss the Old Emma Chamberlain," and in her video, she kind of turned herself into the old her and talked about her growth and her experience on the internet and how, while she has changed, she thinks that's just kind of like normal. She's just kind of evolved from being 16 to 19. And I think this is where I would like to pause again and just reflect on all of the information we just went through. I think everything that Emma Chamberlain has gone through in her life is like what a normal teenager would go through, except she has had to do it in front of millions and millions and millions of people with extreme amounts of pressure and extreme amounts of money. Of course, any 16-year-old, when they can't afford Gucci, is going to make fun of it because you can't afford it. So what else are you gonna do? Of course, now that she can afford luxury items, she's gonna buy them. Of course, now that she can afford a nicer car, she's going to buy one. That's what any person in her situation would probably realistically do. I think the big thing that happened with Emma and the big mistake that happened was people held her to the same standards and same beliefs that they did when she was 16, which makes sense because that's why people subscribed. But at the same time, imagine being 20 years old and being held to the same standards and same beliefs that you had when you were 16 years old. That is a massive time of like pivotal change in the development of a person. I think because Emma was sort of in this beginning stage of the anti-vlogger, we didn't really know what would happen when she actually hit the numbers that the vloggers she was making fun of hit. And what showed was she still is, you know, funny and relatable in the sense that her personality is relatable, but obviously she can't be a millionaire and also be relatable to most 19-year-olds. Most 19-year-olds aren't millionaires. It makes sense to me that Emma has changed over the last 3 years, and I will not be surprised when in 3 years she's changed again, because that's just kind of what you do when you're at these ages. I think the reason people people did get harsher with Emma was because there is the criticism that her content got lazy. And I actually can agree with that, personally. I do think that there's a significant change in her content from like 2017, 2018 to the late 2018, 2019 content. I think she did lose her passion a little bit. I think she did lose her spark. In January of 2020, she posted this video where the whole concept was she was gonna dye like a strip of her hair blue. And she did the whole video and then she didn't dye her hair blue, but she still uploaded the video. And frankly, like, it wasn't a good video. And all of the comments were basically saying that, like, hey, this was a bad video. You didn't even dye your hair. Why did you even upload this? It was a waste of 10 minutes. You only uploaded this because there was a sponsorship in it. So she uploaded another video and actually dyed her hair and addressed it. And I think in a sense that was actually like a huge wake-up call for her, because while her views are still very good, they're definitely lower than they were. And same thing with her subscriber growth. Like, it's much lower than it was. And in a way, I think you could look at that one of two ways. You could say, well, she got entitled and she got whatever and she stopped really caring about YouTube. And I personally, after watching all of this content from her, I think it's more of the fact that she used YouTube as a coping mechanism to make herself feel better. And once she grew and got super popular on YouTube, YouTube didn't make her feel better anymore. She didn't have that safe space in posting and creating that she once had, which is honestly something I've seen, especially after analyzing a lot of these careers. Like, I'm seeing this with so many YouTubers, as they started as a hobby because it's fun and they love it, and then it grows to be this business and it becomes kind of low-key miserable for them. Now, in 2020 now, like since quarantine, Emma has gotten an editor, which seems to be going really, really well for her, honestly. It's kind of unclear when that started, but whatever the case, it seems to be going well. She bought like a brand new house. It was $4 million, this beautiful home. She's been uploading on TikTok a ton. I think she's very, kind of captures that same relatableness on TikTok that she used to in her YouTube videos, because she does things, again, other TikTokers aren't doing. She'll do dances, but like in a very funny Emma-like way, I guess. She has a personality that I think will always make her very interesting to people, because she is different than what other influencers put out about themselves in a way that doesn't necessarily need to be particularly like vulgar in a Tana Mojo style way. She's still very wholesome, but also is able to be very different. Now, with getting this editor, it does seem that she has found a passion for filming again, and she does seem to actually enjoy filming. She's posting a lot more. She's coming up with a lot more creative content. So I do think that that pressure that she felt with editing was a really big block for her, and I am glad she removed that, because her content seems to be better because of it. I think Emma is a classic example of what we are seeing now with young kids starting social media so young, and I think in a way it's sort of a blueprint of what we're seeing happen. We hadn't really seen until Emma kids start that young and then grow to be that successful. She's kind of the first of her kind in that sense, along with other people who came up with her during that time. Emma has also recently opened up about an eating disorder and struggling severely with her mental health. I think we as a society almost need to start thinking about the impact that this level of stardom and this level of fame can have on young people into their adult lives. She's 19 years old now, and the ramifications of the things that she went through when she was 16 are still absolutely following her when it comes to her career. And yes, is she a millionaire and is she very successful? Of course. Like, she's made more money than most of us ever will in a lifetime at the age of 19, which is huge. But at the same time, she's very clearly not the happiest person. She very obviously struggles with a lot of different things that are a direct result of having a career on social media at such a young age and the pressure that that put on her. And while she seems happier in her most recent videos, I really think that the overarching story of Emma Chamberlain and the evolution of her content from when she started is actually a kind of sad one. And I think this has been a bit of a different sort of, you know, evolution video for me, because I don't really have a lot of things to say about Emma that are like critical. I mean, I can be nitpicky, obviously, but I think overall the theme of this should more be focused on teens in social media and the impact that that type of job can have on them at such a young age. In a very weird way, the success of Emma Chamberlain also ended up being the downfall of Emma Chamberlain. As she got more successful, she got less relatable, and when being relatable is your brand, that is a downfall for you. And I think that's super, super interesting, because it makes me wonder about so many of these people we're seeing, especially on like TikTok. These kids blow up right now. You have Charli D'Amelio, who's 16 and famous for being a 16-year-old who does dances. And it's something we haven't seen before, for, because typically we're used to like celebrities, right? And you know, obviously we know what happens to childhood stars, especially those who struggled a lot in the public light. But I think there is something to be said in the difference between struggling as an actress and struggling as a person who's famous for being themselves. I think there is a difference there. I think it's really, really interesting to watch and see, and also something I think we should just be like looking out for, I guess. There's not a whole lot you can do. I think it's just interesting to observe and talk about, and I'm really interested to know what you guys think about all of this. And yeah, that's gonna be it for me. I hope you guys like this video. I hope it wasn't boring, because it wasn't as like deep dive, but I thought it was kind of cool to go through everything. And yeah, I love you guys so much. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please like and subscribe, or just subscribe, or do neither. Honestly, just so happy you're watching me. Thank you so much for being here. My brand new merch, my October limited edition October merch, will be linked down below, along with a link to register to vote. That's right, you can click on that link, you can register to vote, and you can be part of your democracy. Super fun thing to do. Along with that will also be my little list of social justice spotlight. Go click on those links, be informed, donate, do what you can. And yeah, I love you guys so much, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!